Fine. So good morning to all of you. So this is the second class of mine and maybe today the last day. So I will talk about the subcomputing techniques or the computational intelligence techniques, tools and techniques and its application, because till now I am sure all of you have covered a wide range of the nature inspired computing tools, whether it is genetic algorithm, particle swarm optimization, simulated annealing, and then coming to ant colony optimization, bacteria foraging, grey wolf optimization, the monkey optimization, whatever maybe. So the basic idea, basic philosophy of all those algorithms may be understood by you. I have already told, because the core, the skeleton of all those algorithms is based upon generation of multiple initial guess of the solution, then to generate another set of solution by different means. These means are different in different algorithm, whatever happening in the nature. And again, you have to look into the performance of any of these algorithm is dependent on the tuning of the parameters. That is most important, rather than telling this algorithm is better, this algorithm is better, or which algorithm I will apply to my problem solving. So again, there is a word of caution to everybody. Look into your problem. If your problem demands such a tool or technique, then only go for that. Because sometimes people, researchers, what they do, they take a simple problem and they try to solve this problem by a very complex algorithm. So sometimes the paper ultimately gets rejected because the reviewer don't accept it. So you have to look into the complexity of the problem formulation. Okay, if it is a multimodal problem, the number of variables are large, the source space is large enough, then you can go for all those techniques. Anyhow, that is one way. I'm today, so I'll discuss about some of the tools and techniques, and I will give you some idea how to carry out the further research in those particular area. So look into this particular slide. If you look into this, the total computational intelligence or artificial intelligence domain is basically divided into these three subcategories. The first category which I am talking of is the neural network. Okay, so if you look into this neural network, then what happens? This is dependent on the connection and the connectionist model of the brain, because you know that in our human brain there are many neurons. All the neurons are interconnected to form a network. So what is the basic job of this network? Because ultimately the basic job of this particular neural network, which is happens in human brain, okay, the learning process. The neuron or the network has to learn. So once it learns, and you know that the learning is not instantaneous, so you have to train this neural network structure. So whatever may be the structure, it may be feed-forward neural network, it may be probabilistic neural network, it may be your support vector machine, it may be extreme learning machine. So there are different type of neural network, variants of neural network. I am not going into those at the present time, but the main idea of this neural network is it evolves, okay, it learns gradually. So once it learns gradually, the same thing happens also in human brain, in human. That means an individual's learning capability is adapted to the environment, is adapted what the teacher is teaching to us. So either the neural network tries to learn from a teacher, which is basically the supervised learning, that is the learning algorithm, or it tries to learn from the surrounding, or trying to learn by adjusting its own error, that is unsupervised learning. So basically the main idea of this neural network is used particularly for many applications. One of the application is forecasting. Forecasting is basically what happens, we know a time series or there is a sequence of time series. So if you have a sequence of the time series, these are the batch, a batch of time series data. Okay, so you have to predict for the future. So now how a particular pattern there is existing, that pattern is existing in the time series data is learned by the neural network by batch processing. That means you process one by one, the neural network will try to learn. When it learns, its error will be minimized. So during learning process, the same thing happens. If I'll attend only one class and I will give the exam, then definitely my error will be more. I may get a F grade. So ultimately I have to attend the 40 classes. I am learning in those 40 classes, then there is a test. So every neural network is associated with a learning process, and how this learning process is taken place is depend of whether it is a Woodruff learning, it is a backpropagation learning, or it is any other type of learning technique you are implementing. But the basic idea of the learning process is the minimization of the error. Please try to understand why I am telling all this, because till now you have studied, or till now the lectures have been delivered based on the nature inspired computing. Mostly all these nature inspired computing, the main idea, the main goal is to find out the minima or maxima of a particular function. That means ultimately you reach to the minima. So here the same thing I am telling in another way. In a neural network, the learning is based upon the information of the error, and ultimately a good learner, a good learning algorithm is that algorithm where the error is minimizing. So basically this is the main idea of the neural network. A lot of work can be done on the forecasting, on the pattern recognition. You have certain number of the pattern, you have to learn whether it is a handwriting recognition, whether it is a face recognition, whether it is a thumb impression recognition, or any of the recognition task can be achieved by the neural network. So in this case, already you have large number of data sets. Train those data sets, whether it is a two-dimensional data like image, or it is a one-dimensional data like signal. So either you have a signal or you have image, then those can be trained by means of a neural network. Then what is the structure of the neural network? Which neural network you have to choose? What is the other parameter? That I will come later on. Fine. So I am just giving a basic idea about neural network and what is its application in various engineering or science domain. Next is the most important thing is the fuzzy logic. That is another domain of computational intelligence, which is basically dependent on the perception, the human perception, the high level abstraction level of the brain, the high level abstraction of the human cognition ability. So this is also related to the brain, but it is related to the cognitive ability of the brain. Okay. So mostly this fuzzy is applied wherever there is uncertainty. It is applied for many control applications. I will give you a classic example to understand this fuzzy, because fuzzy logic is basically dependent on when there is no crisp measurements are available. Your decision is not based on the crisp measurement, but your decision is based on some linguistic variable, some abstraction level, some human cognition level. Let me explain how you will apply the fuzzy logic. And mostly many of the people have applied this fuzzy logic for the control application. You know, the best example is the fuzzy washing machine. There is a washing machine which runs on the control principle by fuzzy logic. So one example I am giving. For example, I want to park a car in between two already parked cars. So if there are two cars already parked, one car is parked here, another car is parked here. Now the question is, you have to park your car here. Okay, so you know what is the length of your car, okay, depending upon your model, and nobody is going to measure the distance between these two cars which is available for parking. So nobody gets down from the car, take a tape, measure the distance. Okay, the distance is 3.2 meter, my car length is 1.2 meter. Yes, I can park it. Then you come into the driving wheel. Okay, then calculate whatever you have understood in physics. S equal to ut plus half a t square. You put your accelerator by certain measurement a, decide the time for 2 seconds or 3 seconds, then move some distance. Okay, accordingly you control your steering wheel, then go back, again measure the distance, nothing happens. So basically you can try, this is a feedback control, because you know the space available, you are driving your car to certain, now the space available becomes, or the error is minimized. So nobody is measuring the error. how much distance is left, and coming to the driving wheel and putting the accelerator by a fixed amount. So that never happens when I am doing this. Another classical example I can give you, many times we do this. Okay, when while brushing the teeth, okay, I thought I will open the tap and I will fill the bucket. Then ultimately there is a command which is coming to my mind. Okay, I know that I will brush the teeth very quickly. So this very quickly, so that's why I have to open the tap fully. These are the two linguistic variables. If I have to brush my teeth quickly or very quickly, I have to open the tap fully. So this very quickly, fully. If I have to brush my teeth slowly, then I have to open the tap slowly. So this slowly, very quickly, moderately. So these are my perception. I understand how much. Nobody measures, okay, exactly what is the time taken to brush the teeth. So there is no logic. If I will brush the teeth in 10 seconds, then I have to go to the tap and I will open the and I will rotate the tap by 3 degrees so that the bucket will be filled in 5 seconds. No calculation. So please try to understand. In the case of the fuzzy logic, basically the decision is taken based on the abstraction level. So all this you have to convert your error, your change in error into a fuzzy. Okay, a fuzzy set. So it's not a crisp set, it's not a crisp measurement where the belongingness is 0 and 1. So in a fuzzy set, the belongingness may lie between 0 to 1 with certain degree of membership function. Clear? So people have worked in many, in this case of the fuzzy logic, there are tremendous application in different unit pattern recognition area. And lastly, which we have already discussed and you are listening it since last 4 days, and this is today perhaps is the 5th day, that is the evolutionary algorithm, that is the nature inspired algorithm, that is basically we call it bio inspired computing or whatever. So all these algorithms are basically based on either evolution based, Darwin's survival of the fittest, or the swarm intelligence based. There are two things. So one is based on the evolve, where you are evolving a new solution from the set of old solution. So this evolution is a slow process. Okay, and the nature of the evolution depends what will be the structure of the species. So basically evolutionary algorithm is applied for optimization technique, whether it is a single objective optimization, whether it is a multi-objective optimization, whether it is a many objective optimization. So there may be different nature of the optimization. Okay, constraint, unconstrained, all these single objective, multi-objective, many objective. So you are applying various algorithms into that domain. So these are the three baskets in front of me. One is the neural network having a lot of application. Another is the fuzzy logic also having a lot of application. Another is the evolutionary algorithm. Now, I'll put something. Can I have some hybridization of the algorithm? Whatever algorithm you have learned till now, evolutionary algorithm, starting from genetic algorithm to whatever nowadays new algorithm, chicken swarm algorithm or whatever. Okay, so can I make hybridization of neural network with this algorithm, or this algorithm with the neural network, or fuzzy logic with neural network, or fuzzy logic with this algorithm? Can I do that? Let us see. So those are the idea I want to give, and I will also show you few of the applications. Coming to the next, this is a neural network structure. So what happens? I am going very simplicity. These are simple. Those who have also not worked in neural network can also understand it. So basically, in the neural network, what you know a set of pattern. For example, there is a 3 input pattern. Okay, x1, x2, x3. Okay, so if this is the value of x1, this is the value of x2, this is the value of x3, then you know what is your output y1. Okay, so you know pattern 1, you know pattern 2, and likewise you know pattern 1000. So you have 1000 of pattern. Now you have to learn it. Now the very simple thing is, even if we do all these things while in class 2 or 3, we are very happy to fill in the blanks. So if we know what is fill in the blanks, this is nothing but predicting the future. So what do you do in the class? If I have given a series 2, 4, 6 dash, I will be very happy to tell 8, 10 without thinking. Even a class 2 or class 3 student can do it. So this is, he is predicting the next two number of the time series 2, 4, 6. It's fantastic. But if to the same class 2 or class 3 student, I will give a time series, okay, this is 1, 4, 9 dash dash, then he or she may be a little bit confused because he has not understood the square. Now the time series is becoming a little bit non-linear. Earlier it was a linear time series, arithmetic progression, 2, 4, 6. Okay, or a geometric progression, 1, 2, 4, 8. Then you can write 16, 32. But if I have a non-linear one, suddenly 1, 4, okay, 9 dash dash, 16, 25 can be told by class 6 or class 7 students. So my point is, so this learning process takes place in my mind. That's good. But if I'll suddenly give you, all of you present here, including myself, I'll give a time series 1, 7, 32, 49, 95 dash dash. Oh, nobody is able to tell. It's very difficult to study what is the sequence of this time series and what will be the next number. Okay, because that doesn't exist a fixed pattern, fixed way how it is proceeding. So similarly, if I have a set of pattern, okay, so this pattern can be derived either from the signal or from the image by applying some signal processing, image processing, that I will discuss later. But at least you have some patterns. You have to learn those patterns. What is the trend, hidden trend in those patterns? How much nonlinearity is there in those patterns? So there the rescue is the neural network. So what you generally do, now generally you know what you know your pattern input. That is either there are 3 input or 4 input or 5 input or 6 input. And you know what are the number of output, either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay. So this input is known for n number of patterns and the output is also known for n number of patterns. Now you have to train a neural network to learn this so that if a new pattern arrives, it will able to produce the output. Okay. So what is the basic idea? The idea is, pardon? The basic idea is, you know the input, number of nodes in the input, you know the number of nodes in the output, but you do not know how many hidden layer you will take. There is no hard and fast rule. There is no hard and fast rule how many neurons will be in each hidden layer. So ultimately, I am trying just a sequence one. The basic thumb rule is, the number of hidden layer, minimum there should be one hidden layer. Yes, there is a one hidden layer. And the number of neuron in the hidden layer must be equal to or greater than the number of input layer. So input layer neurons are 3, so I am taking 4. So how it proceeds now? The structure is now decided. The structure is 3 input, 1 output, 1 hidden layer. In the hidden layer there is 4 neurons. So the structure is pre-decided. So once the structure you pre-decide, then you give the pattern 1. Once you are giving the pattern 1, for which you know your output, the output should be y1. But these weights are randomly generated. That is 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4, 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4. So the number of weights are 3 into 4 because here there are 3 neurons, here there are 4 neurons. So 12 weights. Even if in some of the neural networks there is a bias. If there is a bias, then this will be, if number of neuron in this layer is m, number of neuron in this layer is n, so the weight matrix is m cross n. Total number of weight is m into n. If there is a bias, then it is m into n plus n. Okay. So n taking common n plus 1. So my point is, all are randomly generated. So as the weights are randomly generated, if you give the pattern 1, you may not get the output y1 because y1 is known to you. You will get some output. Now this, instead of output y1, I am taking it t1, target 1, because you know the target 1. So now target 1 is known. You are getting a output y1. So the error is t1 minus y1. And ultimately you want to minimize this error. So this error, why this error exists? This error is because the weights are not perfectly matching, so that the error will be 0. So you have to update this weight. Either there will be increment or there will be decrement. So to know how you will update this weight, so to know how you will update this weight. So ultimately the objective is the minimization of the error. So if I know how to minimize the error, again come to your algorithm which you have studied. Even if I have told on the first day, the minimization is based on the information of the gradient. So you take the partial differentiation of E, del E, with respect to del W I J, where I is the number of I and okay. And similarly, you have to take the derivative of the error with respect to Wjk, where J is the number of hidden layer, K is the number of input in the output layer. So all the weight contributes to the error. So you have to update this weight. Now please try to understand these error updation, the weight updation is carried out based on the information of the gradient, because del of E with respect to del W is gradient. So you back propagate. So this is a gradient based algorithm. I have already told you the gradient based algorithm works better if your error surface is convex. But can you guarantee me in this particular case the error surface is convex? It has only single minima. Now here comes a new research objective. I am giving just a new research objective. Why should you go for this gradient based learning algorithm? Why not? Already you have learned the multimodal function optimization. I will come to that. So I have already given you some idea of the neural network structure, and now I will tell about how this neural network structure can be obtained. Because here so many things are unknown. You don't know. But ultimately, what is your aim? You have to find a good neural network structure and a good training algorithm, or I can tell mathematically an optimal structure of the neural network and an optimal learning algorithm, so that the accuracy will increase. Because ultimately I am applying this for a pattern recognition problem. So accuracy. So now you see, if I'll formulate it as an optimization problem, so what is my objective? My objective is maximization of efficiency. Okay, or I can tell the objective is minimization of the error during training as well as during testing. Okay, so this minimization of the error, this is objective. But what is my output? My output is what is the structure of the neural network. Let us come to that particular thing. So this is a simple neural network architecture. As I already told you, every neuron in this hidden layer, how it works, because to this neuron all the inputs are coming with a weight, they are added, and already I have mentioned to you a bias is given. So W1x1, W2x2, W3x3, W4x4 plus the bias, that is equal to the input to the neuron. So if this is the input to the neuron, the output of the neuron is a function. And again, this function, you don't know what is the function. You will take whether it is a linear function, a non-linear function. So many unknowns are there. So I am trying to drive all of you towards a new research domain, that is optimization. Because till now you have studied the optimization, very new algorithm about the optimization. How to extend it to various domain for your problem solving, engineering problem solving. That is the main idea. So now coming to that particular one. So this is one of the slide which will tell you a lot. Number one, the first thing is, which I have already mentioned you, if we look into the structure of the neural network, and regarding the structure I have already mentioned, you know the number of input layer and the number of input node and number of output node. But you are unknown about the number of hidden layer, and you are unknown about the number of neuron in each layer. What you will take so that the structure is a good structure. Now if you will apply here your search technique, which you have already studied. One is deterministic search, another is the another is the stochastic search. So in a deterministic search, what I will do, very simple. I know there are 3 input layer, input node, 1 output node. Okay, so you know this only. Now in a deterministic manner, what I will do, I will put 1 hidden layer with let us 4. Okay. Now this is the structure which is coming. With this structure, you train all the 1000 pattern. Once you train all the 1000 pattern, look the error here, the output here, and plot the error here. So you may get error like this, and you are not getting the targeted error. Then what will do? You may think I will increase another one. So now you see your search progresses in iterative manner, in a deterministic way. Then you again run another all 1000 problem. You may get another set of error. I don't know whether the error will improve or the error will increase. If it increases, then आपने बोला no, I should not go for this. Then you increase another layer with 4. Then observe. Okay. Then increase another neuron, observe. Then increase another neuron, observe how it is performing. So ultimately, what exactly I am doing? I am building the structure of the neural network in a traditional or deterministic way by adding one neuron iteratively into one layer, then going on increasing the layer. So this is iterative based learning. So in this method, what happens? Ultimately, the neural network structure must have the better approximation capability because it maps to the input to the output. So these can be achieved. That's why I told you the optimal structure can be achieved either by a constructive method, which already I have mentioned to you, and it is a deterministic way, or it can be achieved by a pruning method. You start from a large network. Okay, see how the error is performing, then go on pruning. Go on pruning the nodes and go on pruning the layers. So ultimately you will end up with a small network. Okay. So these are the two methods, but try to understand both the methods are deterministic method. So this is one way which already I have told you equivalent to Newton-Raphson algorithm, where you are proceeding in iteratively manner to find the maxima or minima based on the information of the gradient. But you learned in last 4 days about evolutionary algorithm. I will come to that. Number 2. Then the training use. You can see the multilayer perceptron neural network mostly. Okay, it is trained using backpropagation learning, and backpropagation learning is based on the information of the gradient. So why? That's why I told you the learning is dependent on the information of the. Suppose if you will plot the W, and you see now the W is a 12 dimension, so there are 12 variables. All the weights are random. So during that weight, how the error surface looks like, you don't know. It may have multiple minima. So if it is a multiple minima, then why should I go for backpropagation learning? Why should not apply the evolutionary computing algorithm? Again, the learning rate. And so my point is very simple. Now I am telling you the idea, the algorithm. You can evolve the network topology, that is the structure, and keep the transfer function predefined, because every neuron is having a transfer function. The transfer function is bipolar, radial, heaviside, state function, and nowadays also Google has come up with many new functions for the deep neural network or CNN, that is ReLU, etc. So the transfer functions are different. Okay, my optimization is becoming more and more complicated. I have to decide what should be the structure. I have to decide what should be the transfer function. How will you do it? I am just giving one classical idea here. Please try to only understand, then you can write your program. So ultimately, here I want to again clear another idea to doubt from all of your mind, because till now you might have known that for every case, the optimization, the evolutionary algorithm is minimization or maximization of a function fx. You must know the function, but not necessarily it is a function. It may be another sub-program. I will give that example after that. So what I'll do there, I'll try to tell you. Now let us, I have certain number of pattern. I'm just giving you a classic example. I have a certain number of pattern. So let the pattern is having 3 input, which already I have told you, x1, x2, x3, and the pattern is having y output, that is the targeted one T1. So you know pattern 1, okay, you know pattern 1000. These are the different targeted output. These 1000 patterns are known. What is my objective? My objective function is to generate a neural network structure, okay, to generate a neural network structure so that all these patterns will be learned, okay, with high accuracy, because you are ultimately you are plotting the error, so the error should be minimized. That is the thing, the error should be minimized. Again, you can extend it to both learning and testing. Minimization of the error during learning and minimization of the error during testing. Because out of the 1000 pattern, what you can do, you can use 700 pattern for your training, 300 pattern for your testing. Okay. So I hope you are clear about it. But now what is my objective? My objective is to generate a neural network structure. So remember, you have a neural network structure learning algorithm. Neural network learning algorithm. And let this learning is, I am fixed, the learning is backpropagation learning. I don't bother about tuning the learning, but I want a optimal structure. So this program is written in MATLAB. This is a sub-function. The sub-function contains a neural network learning algorithm. What is the input to the learning algorithm? The input to the learning algorithm is the number of pattern, that is 1000. The number of input neuron, that is 3. The number of output neuron, that is 1. That is known. But what is unknown? The unknown is I have to evolve the structure. So now I will evolve it by PSO, or I will evolve it by monkey algorithm, or I will evolve it by genetic algorithm. So there is another program. So this is program 1. Now I am writing another program P2, which is basically PSO. This is your optimization algorithm. This is your neural network algorithm. By applying this optimization algorithm, you want to find out an optimal neural network structure for better learning or for minimization of the error during training and testing. I hope you understand the problem. Now, how to formulate the problem, that is the important thing, because the research paper, they don't discuss how to formulate the problem. At least you will get some idea how to formulate the problem here. Now, what will be my coding? What will be my particle size? Because PSO is generally tells what is the particle size, or what is the swarm size. Okay, no problem. The swarm size is 20. So that means I have to generate 20 particle. But what is the length of each particle? So what is my unknown? My unknown is number of hidden layer. So let the first bit, okay, the first particle B1, the first bit, I am not taking x1, x3. The first bit is the number of hidden layer. So you may pre-decide the range, the number of hidden layer, because let us I am deciding the number of hidden layer will be 1 to 5. Either there is a single hidden layer or maximum there is 5 hidden layer. Okay. Then what is the next? Next B2. What is the number of neuron in each hidden layer? So ultimately what will happen? What will happen here? So this is a particle of 2 bits. Bit 1 is the number of hidden layer, which is in between 1 to 5. Bit 2 is the number of neuron in the hidden layer, and definitely as you have 3 input, so number of neuron in the hidden layer will be, let us 4 to 10, minimum 4, maximum 10. So now there is absolutely no problem. Generate a random number between 1 to 5, let that is 3. Generate a random number between 4 to 10, let that is 7. Okay. Generate another random number between 1 to 5 is 2. Random number 4 to 10 is 5. Similarly, you generate 20 particle. Absolutely no problem. So now you have to link these two. There are 2 programs. So first, what we'll do, take the first particle. What is the first particle? The number of hidden layer is 3. The number of neuron in each layer is 7. This will pass to your neural network. So this neural network is nothing but the objective function. So now the first particle is passed there. If the first particle is passed there, so now a neural network structure is created with 3 input neuron. Okay, 3 hidden layer 1, hidden layer 2, hidden layer 3. Each hidden layer is having 7 neuron. Okay, and 1 output layer. So this is one structure, and this structure is randomly created. Now you take this structure. Means what you have to do? You see how many weights? So these are the 3 to 7, 3 into 7, 21 weights. 7 into 7, 49 weights. 7 into 7, 49 weights. 7 into 1, it's 7 weights. So all these weights are randomly generated. That is a program. You don't have to do, because once you get the dimension, all these weights are generated. If all these weights are generated, then pattern 1 is given x1, x2, x3. You will get an output y1, see t1 minus y1, the error, because that will be done by your backpropagation learning algorithm. So you run the backpropagation learning algorithm with a randomly created neural network structure, and the structure is decided by particle 1. So you will get what is the minimum value of the error after your 1000 number of learning epoch. So that is objective function f1. Clear? So here I am getting the evaluation function f1. Please clear your doubt. The evaluation function f1 is not obtained by any mathematical function. F is 5b1 square plus 7b2 plus 3 mod b1 sin b2, nothing else. It is created by another program. So please have in your mind, not necessarily the objective function for your minimization or maximization is always a program, always a mathematical function. No, it may be a sub program, but the output of the sub program, whatever. So here the output of the sub program is the error after the complete learning for 1000 iteration. So that is your f1. Now you go to particle 2. In particle 2, now what will happen? This 3 will remain same, 1 will remain same, but there will be 2 hidden layer instead of 3 earlier. Each hidden layer is having 5 number of neuron. So the number of weights will be generated 3 into 5 plus 5 into 5 plus 5 into 1. Okay, and same pattern will run again through backpropagation learning. I am not taking learning algorithm different, one learning algorithm. So you will go like this. So ultimately, when all 20 particles will be evaluated, then you can find who is global max minima, which combination is giving you the minimum value. Then you go for your next step. Okay, your updation of the particle. So I hope you can understand. So now every particle is evaluated by the neural network learning algorithm for 1000 epoch. So now 20 particles will be evaluated, 20 into 1000 number of epoch. Then you come back to do your whatever, if GA crossover mutation, if D mutation crossover, if it is the ant colony, whatever operation. So those operations can be done. So basically what you are achieving by doing all those operations, irrespective of the algorithm, you are generating another set of 20 solution, new solution. Again those 20 solution will be passed one by one to the neural network and again evaluated. So error after each learning, if you can reduce that error, so it is a minimization. So finally, what is the output you will get? The output you will get is one optimal structure of the neural network for which the training and testing error is minimized. Okay, I can make this problem a little bit complicated. What is this complication? Complication number 1. Why all the 3 hidden layer generated will have same 7 neuron? I can take, okay, for hidden layer 1, the number of neuron between 4 to 10 is 5. For hidden layer 2, the number of neuron between 4 to 10 is 7. The number of neuron for third layer number between 4 to 10 is 4. So there, in the case number of particle instead of 2, it will be 4 particle. Okay, so I am making more and more complex the problem. It is not a, earlier I was taking a uniform. Okay, 3 hidden layer, but each hidden layer is having 7. Now, okay, 3 hidden layer, but all these hidden layer are having different number of neuron. No change. do all these things iteratively. Again, I am making more further complicated, because here I have assumed that the transfer function of each hidden neuron or each neuron in the hidden layer is either unipolar or bipolar or hyperbolic tangent, anyone, pre-decided. Why it should be pre-decided? It should be evolved also. I don't know which transfer function will give better. So what will be change in my coding? My change in the coding is the bit 1 is the number of hidden layer. Let it is 3. Bit 2. Okay. Bit 2. Hidden layer 1 number of neuron. Random number 4 to 10 is 5. Bit 3. Okay. Number of hidden neuron in second layer 7. Bit 4. Let it is 4. Now bit 5. Bit 5 is the transfer function for all the neuron in this level. So you now suppose in your bank these are the transfer function. You give it a code 1, 2, 3, like way let us 7. ReLU is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. ReLU is 8. So you generate a random number between 1 to 8. If the random number is 3, then hyperbolic tangent. So this number is 3. 3 means the transfer function of all the neuron, all the 5 neuron in first hidden layer is hyperbolic tangent. Generate another random number between 1 to 8. Let the random number is 8. If the bit 6 is the random number 8, that it reflects to the transfer function ReLU. So all the neuron in hidden layer 2 is having a ReLU transfer function. See, I can make this because this is stochastic algorithm. I am only trying to tell you how you can, because till now you may understand all those algorithms, but you have to apply those algorithms for a problem solving. Okay, so here at the end of this, I am able to generate an optimal neural network structure. So this research field is people call evolvable neural network, because you are evolving the structure of the neural network, the transfer function associated with the neurons of the neural network by evolutionary algorithm or by non-traditional optimization algorithm or by stochastic search algorithm, leaving the weight updation by classical way, error gradient. Second thing you can do, you can also update this error based on the multimodal function optimization. So error, don't update the error based on the information of the gradient. You update the error randomly, update the weights randomly. So every weight is randomly generated and updated based on the information. That also you can do. Okay. So I have given you two thoughts. One thought is the evolution of the neural network structure associated with different transfer function, so that ultimately the goal is maximization of the accuracy or maximization of the efficiency or the minimization of the error in training or minimization of the error in testing, or you can give the weightage of the minimization to both error in training and testing. So ultimately you can have the topology updation, you can find the optimal mix of the transfer function. I am going to the next slide. Here again, I don't know whether you have covered the multi-objective optimization till now or not, but on the first day I have given just a very glimpse about the multi-objective optimization. Till now whatever I have discussed, I am discussing about a single objective optimization. Any algorithm you can apply, and what is your objective is the minimization of the error. Now here I am giving you another idea also, how to generate a neural network structure keeping the multi-objective in mind. What is the multi-objective? Let's see here. Because sometimes your time series are very little bit nonlinear. Like I told you, 149. It doesn't have that much of complexity. So if you are generating a neural network structure which is not that much of complex, that means the structure is simple, then the computational burden, the computational resources requirement is low. So if the computational resource requirement is low, that means your output can come very fast. Then in that case, you may get the error a little bit high, because maybe the pattern is not properly mapped. Suppose the patterns are highly nonlinear, but the structure which you have generated is a very small one. So you may achieve computation with a less time, with less computational burden, and so the complexity of the neural network is less, but simultaneously don't expect the error will be less. But I expect the error should be less. No, in that case the error will be more. So your solution lies here. Somebody may take a neural network structure. See, in both the cases, the number of input is 2, output is 1, but only the structure is changing. So here less number of neuron, here more number of neuron, here more number of layers and more number of neuron. So more and more you are adding, maybe not necessarily always, it depends on your pattern. Maybe more nonlinear mapping you can do by going to a complex structure. But when you are going to a complex structure, then the complexity is large, the computational burden is more, the time of computation is more. But in that case, you may obtain the error which is low. So these are the two extreme end of the Pareto front in the case of a non-dominated setting. Now intermediately you can get this. So here my point is, you can take two different objectives. Objective 1 is maximization of accuracy or minimization of the error. Objective 2 also the computational burden, minimization of the computational burden, minimization of the resources utilization. But these two are contradictory objectives. So if these two are contradictory objectives, because I'll give two classic examples. One example is, suppose you are applying this neural network to understand or to diagnose a disease for biomedical application. So in the case of diagnostic of disease or any diagnostic or decision making, maybe in forensic decision making by fingerprint, by DNA sequencing, by iris or whatever, you want to find whether the person has committed some crime or not. So you have to match all those, you take the pattern. So there accuracy is utmost concern. So I must have to give high priority to the accuracy or to the error minimization, less priority to the complexity. It may take more time, I don't bother, because I don't want to take a decision within fraction of second to diagnose a disease. That's why you look into your application, what your application demands. So there I may prefer this solution. The complexity may be more, I don't bother about it. It may take more time to give the output, but the accuracy is of utmost importance. But suppose you are applying this to a control problem, online control. If you are applying to a control problem, a neuro control, so you see the control signal has to be given in a proper time. Otherwise, if your control signal will be generated after a long time, the system may become unstable. So that's why there your complexity or the time at which the control signals will be generated is important. You may not go have to a complicated network and you wait till the control signal is generated. A missile is coming, your anti-missile is to be fired. आप ये नहीं बोल सकते नहीं मेरा neural network training हो रहा है. So in that case, even if a little bit error you can tolerate in some of the cases, not exactly, you have to decide, but your control should be very fast. So that's why I may obtain a solution here, or I may obtain a solution here, or I may obtain a solution here. So this is user dependent now. So you provide the user a set of solution. None of the solution is dominant on the other. Each one is the non-dominated solution, and these are obtained by non-dominated sorting algorithm, okay, which is used by Professor Kalyan Mahadev. That's why it is known as NSGA. GA is the genetic algorithm for optimization. In multi-objective framework, it is non-dominated sorting genetic algorithm. Similarly, evolutionary algorithm in multi-objective domain is strength Pareto evolutionary algorithm, SPEA. Similarly, you may go for multi-objective PSO, multi-objective ant colony optimization, multi-objective bacteria forizing optimization. I don't know about whatever. You can go. But the main idea is to generate a set of solution depending upon your requirement. So my point here is very clear. You can apply also multi-objective optimization for generating an optimal structure of the neural network not only looking into the error minimization, but also looking into simultaneous minimization of error and complexity. So you decide where you have to operate, whether you have to operate here, take this structure, or you have to operate here, take this structure, or in between a compromise solution here. Okay, this is the second idea. Similarly, many of you may work on decision tree, random forest for classification problem. So the same thing, the less structure of this decision tree, you can have this error and complexity. So you can apply here. So ultimately, I have to wait for you have to take a minimum error for this particular one. So this is one idea I have already told to you for optimization of the neural network and etc. for this optimal tuning of the neural network or optimal structure of the neural network for the application area. Similarly, let me go to a fuzzy. Okay, in fuzzy, what happens? I don't know. Many of you may know, many of you can read it. So in the fuzzy, what exactly I am doing? Instead of defining a crisp set, for example, I'll just give you an example. Suppose I am making a example of two simple fuzzy, simple set. Okay, one set is the people who are old, another set is the people who are young. So if I'll define it by means of the age, I'm sorry, this is young and this is old. So I can define it by putting a boundary here, and this boundary is 40. Let us. So anybody more than 40, you are defining he's old. Anybody less than 40, you are defining that is young. So 39 will be definitely young, and 41 is definitely old, and 90 is also old, and 10 is also young. So this is the range 10 to 90. Okay, so 10 plus 90 by 2, whatever I have told you earlier, this is 10 plus 90 by 2 is 50. So 50 is a boundary. So this is a crisp set. So rather than a crisp set, what I can do, I can make it fuzzy. If I'll make it fuzzy, what I'm doing, okay, so I can decrease it like this. So if somebody is 10, he is 100% young. If somebody is 50, he may be 25% young. And if somebody is reaching at 60, okay, he is just no young, he is old. And similarly, the old I can start from 40 here, okay, or 30. The 30, once you go on increasing 30, so likewise I can make another set. So these are the two triangular membership function. So what is happening? Okay, 10 is completely young, but if somebody is 50, so you may take no, this 50 is 20% young as well as 20% old. But if somebody is 90, okay, old, even more than 60, its oldness, belongingness increases. Either you can make it triangular, or after 60 you can make it trapezoidal. After 60, everybody is everybody is old, or before 20, everybody is. So either you can take these are the triangular membership function. Okay. So that's why my point is, instead of fuzzy, you assign a membership function. A person doesn't belong to 100% to old set or 100% to young set if the age is between 30 to 50 or something like that. So that is that membership function you have to create. But again, what is the best membership function? You don't know. So why I'm telling all this best? Because you have studied the optimization. Because see, that is the research. If you are very strong in optimization algorithm, you have to devise a problem and you have to fit your optimization algorithm there. So I have told you how to fit your optimization algorithm for neural network training. And now I will tell you how to fit the optimization algorithm to generate the optimal fuzzy system or optimal fuzzy set for your application. So the question is, the structure optimization of the fuzzy. Again, there is some neural network which is fuzzy neural network. Many people have done also this FIS, fuzzy inference system. What happens here? The neuron transfer function is a fuzzy. It's not whatever I have told you, linear, non-linear. It's a fuzzy type of thing. So that is UNFIS. Many people have worked on the UNFIS. So now my point is, can you tune it by means of genetic algorithm, PSO, differential evolution algorithm? Yes, you can generate randomly, no problem. So the structure of the fuzzy set. Okay, why the structure will be triangular? Why the structure is trapezoidal? If it is triangular, Why it is? Because sometimes people take triangular but that is symmetrical. For example, like this. So here the membership is 0, here the membership is 0, but here at the middle the membership is 1. Oh, why? It may happen like this. It may happen like this. I don't know. So whether it is a symmetrical, unsymmetrical, so many structure can evolve, but you don't know which structure is best suited for your application. So my point is, you can do also the fuzzy logic application, the evolutionary algorithm application to tune the fuzzy structure. Okay. Now I will go to the third one. Till now, what we have understood. We understood neural network. We understood little bit about the fuzzy. We understood much more about my evolutionary algorithm, whether it is GA, PSO, etc. Remember what I have told you. I have told you the PSO algorithm or any algorithm is dependent on the tuning of the parameter. And I have also told you different method of tuning of this parameter. If I am looking to the PSO, okay, because I have discussed this PSO with you. If you look into the PSO, I know there are 3 parameters which performs or which influences the movement of the particle in the search space, or you can tell which influences the convergence of the algorithm and stability of the algorithm is the inertia factor W, okay, is the self-cognitive factor C1 and social learning factor C2. And I have also told you various method in changing omega C1 C2 in a linear manner, because omega is changed from maximum to minimum in a linear fashion. C1 is changed from self-dependent manner. C1 initially low value, okay, finally go to 2.1, C2 high low and go to 2.1, and C2 just reverse, whatever. Okay, so all these because this is your C1 and this is your C2 with respect to time, that way. And again, whether this is like this or it is a staircase, so all these things you have discussed, but cannot apply fuzzy here. So here what I want to do, please try to understand. I want these parameter C1 and C2, you can do omega for also, no problem. C1 and C2 to be tuned by fuzzy, logic. So if it will be tuned by fuzzy logic, then what will happen? Now you see, I am telling, you are starting. So every fuzzy logic is associated with a rule base. Okay, what is that rule base? Because, for example, I will give you a control example, then I will come back to here. Sorry, it may take a minute time. So what is the basic idea of this fuzzy? Here, first thing is fuzzy set. You make the fuzzy and evaluate. Then second step is this rule evaluation. What exactly we are doing? Let me tell you in a very simple manner, because it will take another 3 hours to tell you fuzzy. Okay, the rule is what you are doing. If you are suppose your error is a, okay, let sorry. Because I want to give this idea to you in only one minute. Let everybody is knowing this particular system, because irrespective of your branch, whether you are electrical, mechanical or whatever, you might have studied control system during your BTech. So in our control system, what do we exactly want to do? Let us, I am giving a unit step function to the system. So this is my system output should be equal to 1. So I hope nobody will face understand this problem. Okay, I am pressing, let us 1 in the lift. If I am giving the command 1 in the lift, this indicates that the lift will travel 1 point or 2 meter. Okay, so 2 meter is already 6 feet or 7 feet. So it will come to and stop in the first floor. If I am pressing 2, it will travel 4 meter. If I am pressing 7, it will travel 14 meter. And but how this moves? So initially it moves from 0. Ultimately it has to come to 1. So there may be 3 different conditions. You know, one is underdamped system, where there is a oscillation and the system will settle. There is a overdamped system, where the system behavior is very slow. It may be like this, overdamped system. And there is a critical damped system, where it reaches quickly. So you may obtain this system. But how this system is going from this to this, on which it depends upon? It depends on the controller parameter. Okay. So if it depends the controller parameter, in people, you know that is the PI control. So what happens in a PI control? If I have a PI controller, so what is happen? You are giving the information E, so then E is multiplied with Kp, and then sigma E is multiplied with Ki, and the derivative of E, dE by dt, is multiplied with Kd. So Kp into error, Ki into sum of the error, Kp into derivative of the error, change in error. So that this is the output of the PID controller. But this gain is fixed. Irrespective of the value of the error, irrespective of the value of change in error or summation of the error, that is fixed. So this is a fixed gain PI controller. Okay. But look into the system, understand the system. If you will understand the system, now you see, when you are starting, what is your value of the error? The error is maximum. What is the change in error? 0. So remember, at this point O, error is equal to 1, change in error is equal to 0. So this is the point. And this will be vary depending on which scenario. Now suppose you are reaching here. If you are reaching here, what is the error? Error exactly equal to 0. Change in error is small. Now, do you require the control action here and control action here same? Because what happens by a fixed gain proportional controller? Here the error will be multiplied by Kp. Change in error will be multiplied by Kd. But here at least I want a more push, a more force, because your error is maximum. Error is 1. You want more force, so that you want to push it. Okay. So now I can make a fuzzy rule here. Instead of a crisp, I can tell at O the error is maximum positive. So then I am writing a rule. If error is positive, change in error is 0, then the control action U is large. So this is a fuzzy. Your error is positive, change in error is 0, control action is large. Yes, I want a large push. Then come to point B or in between. If you are coming to in between, here what will happen? The error is positive small, here positive large. The error is positive small. The change in error is, now change in error, you see, earlier the error will be this much. Now the error is reducing. So change in error is negative. So you can write change in error is negative. Then control action is medium. Here you don't want the same push. Now here error is 0. Change in error is very, very small. The control action should be 0. Otherwise it will be pushed. Now when it will be pushed, the error is negative. Okay. Because you have to reach 1. Your value is 1.5. So final 1 minus 1.5 is minus. So error is negative. Here you want the control action in the reverse way. So now I hope you have understood how to do in a fuzzy. So in a fuzzy, now you see, that's why a fixed gain controller, now you can have a fuzzy PID controller where the gain is changing based on the information of error and change in error. So what is the steps of fuzzy? First, the fuzzification of error and change in error. So now suppose the error is having 3 fuzzy set. 3 fuzzy set means positive, 0, negative. Change in error is having 3 different fuzzy set. Positive, 0, negative. You may make 5. How will you make 5? Positive small, large, positive small, 0, negative small, negative large. Similarly, change in error. You may make 7. Positive large, positive medium, positive small, 0, negative small, negative medium, negative large, 7. So depending on your number of fuzzy sets you are creating based on the error, based on change in error, your number of rule goes on increasing. If it is 3, number of rule will be 3 into 3, 9. 7, 7 into 7, 49. 5, 5 into 5, 40. So that is known as fuzzy inference system. Okay, so I hope you have just got some idea about the fuzzy. Let us will go to our own PSO example. How to tune the parameter C1 and C2 by applying the fuzzy principle. Okay, so it is a fuzzy based tuning. come to that, sorry. Then I will go to this application. Let's see, this is the fuzzy based tuning. So what I am doing here, if my iteration is low, okay, if iteration is low, this is a fuzzy rule, and the diversity is low. How will you know the diversity? Because you have evaluated every particle. Every particle is evaluated, F1 to F20. Take the standard deviation. If the standard deviation is low, this means that all the particles are concentrated at one point. They are not moving here and there. That means the particle is not enough distributed. That means your exploration is low. Understood? The exploration capability is low. That's why the diversity is low. So you are starting. Generally at starting I should have large diversity, but unfortunately in starting I have a low diversity. Then आपको क्या करना है? What you have to do? You have to make C1 high and C2 low. Similarly, if iteration is low, diversity is medium, C1 is medium high, C2 is medium. If iteration is low, diversity is high, C1 is medium high, C2 is medium low. Likely you can make all these rules depending on, you may ask how many rules will be there. So every fuzzy inference system is having a antecedent part. This is your antecedent part, which is if and then, or if or, it may be if or. If iteration is low or diversity is low, you can see there is a or rule, there is a and rule. Then you can have the consequent part. This is your consequent. The consequent, either it is a single consequent. So this is a Mamdani fuzzy structure. In the Mamdani fuzzy structure, the antecedent is also fuzzy and the consequent is also fuzzy. The consequent is not crisp. The consequent is also high, low, medium. This is also fuzzy set. If it is a Takagi-Sugeno fuzzy, then the consequent is crisp. Instead of C1 is high, you tell C1 is 2.1. C2 is low, you tell C2 is 0.1 or 0.5. Okay, so it is not high, low. So I can write, in case of Takagi-Sugeno fuzzy model, if iteration is low, diversity is low, then C1 is 2 and C2 is 0.5. Similarly, I can write, if iteration is high, diversity is high, C1 is low, that is 0.5, C2 is low, that is 0.5. So you can have any type of fuzzy structure. So my point is, be very honest and be very clear here. You can tune the parameters of your evolutionary algorithm, whether it is a PSO, whether it is a DE, whether it is a differential evolutionary algorithm or ant colony algorithm, because all these algorithms are based on the principle I have already mentioned to you, the exploration and exploitation. So that the indication of exploration and exploitation can come by the measurement of at which iteration you are, okay, what is the diversity, and all other. Similarly, you can do for the multi-objective function. So I hope you understood how you can do the dynamic parameter adaptation, because here in the case the C1 and C2 will dynamically updated based on the performance, either in GA or PSO by using fuzzy. So earlier we have used this fuzzy or PSO to tune the neural network, PSO to tune the fuzzy membership function, but here is the reverse. I am taking the help of fuzzy set to tune the parameter of the evolutionary algorithm during its performance. Clear? So these are the some idea of the hybridization of the various algorithm. Now I am coming to one of the problem solving. So this problem solving is basically we done the epileptic seizure detection. So basically for the epileptic seizure detection, forget about whether you know epileptic seizure detection or do not know epileptic seizure. I will make it very simple from signal processing. Okay, so we obtained the signals from the brain. So these are the signals of the brain. Okay, so once you get the signals of the brain by putting various electrodes in the brain, but ultimately any neurologist can diagnose it looking into whether the person is suffered from epileptic stroke or not. But similarly, this signal can be replaced if somebody is of electrical engineering and they want to do the condition monitoring of the motor, they can replace the vibration signal of the motor. I don't bother about that. If somebody is doing the condition monitoring of the transformer, you can replace this signal by various current signature during inrush, current signature during fault, current signature during 2-turn sorted, 5-turn sorted, I don't know about that. So my point is, it is a classification problem. You have to diagnose whether there is a fault in the system or not. The fault may be the fault on the brain, the fault on the heart, you may take heart signal, or the fault on the machine, or the fault on a power system, which type of fault has happened. So forget about that. Basically, the diagnostic comes from the analysis of the signal, or the diagnostic comes from the analysis of the image. So you have multiple signals, recorded signals, or you have multiple images. So you have to make a pattern recognition problem by decision making or diagnostic. Correct? So once you understand this, what is the next step? The next step is data acquisition. So you acquire this data to process it by means of a computer. So you have to apply here discrete data. So you make a discretization, you make a sampling of this data by choosing a proper sampling frequency. Okay, so once you choose the sampling frequency, if many of you know the signal processing technique, you know the Shannon sampling theorem. So as per the Shannon sampling theorem, if you are interested up to a frequency range 0 to f, then you must sample the data at a frequency greater than equal to 2f. Okay, so that part I am leaving here. So once you acquire the data, now you have the discrete data. So once you have the discrete data, now these are the various data sets I am showing you. Now I have to draw a conclusion by looking into the data set. The neurologist may draw the conclusion by looking into the naked eye, because he knows or she knows, okay, where there is a problem, where there is abnormality, because ultimately the brain of the neurologist is already trained by looking into various data and diagnosis. But as an engineer, if you give all those data to me, I may not understand anything. Even if being an electrical engineer, if you will give me a set of data or the vibration from the induction motor, I will not able to tell whether this vibration is due to there is a bearing damage or the ball damage or there eccentricity in the motor or whatever. I'm not sure. So why not devise a soft computing, evolutionary computing, hybridization tool or technique for the diagnostic purpose, whether it is a medical diagnostic problem or it is a diagnostic problem related to any engineering application. So each diagnostic problem I can treat at present as a classification problem. Whether it is a 2-class, there is a fault or no fault, or it is a multi-class. If it is a fault, what type of fault is it? There is a fault, but what type of fault is it? So either it is a 2-class classification, binary classification, the output is either 0 or 1, or it is a multi-class classification, the output may have belong to class 1, class 2, class 3, class 4. Okay, or normal. So 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever. So once this data is there, then what is the doctor is able to identify, okay, this is your normal, this is the pre-ictal condition, this is ictal condition, this is inter-ictal condition. This may treated, you may treat it as 4 different classes. Okay, so this is as simple as possible. But can I look into all those signals minutely? Can I apply here something to transform or to develop an expert learning system to diagnose? So for that, what we generally do, we look into the signal and apply some signal processing technique. Either the signal processing technique is the Fourier transform, you extract. So now what you have to do? You have to take the feature from the signal. Either the feature is the time domain feature. What are the time domain feature? The RMS value of the signal, the mean value of the signal, the maximum value of the signal, the standard deviation of the signal. These are the statistical mathematical features. Okay, and those features are dependent on the time domain. Because if the particular signal is having same value at all instant of time, then what will happen? You will get a 0 standard deviation. The maximum is same as mean is same as minimum. So maximum equal to minimum equal to mean, MEAN, average value, because always it has the same value. But if there is any deviation, you will get a standard deviation, you will get different maximum value, different mean value. So by looking into those statistical features, you can conclude something. But sometimes the time domain feature may not able to classify properly. I may have to look into the frequency domain information also. What are the frequency information hidden in those signals? So for that, you apply the Fourier transform. So once you apply the Fourier transform, then you can find out the frequency domain information. Or you apply different filters. You pass the signal through a particular band pass filter, look into that. Then pass through it another band pass filter, look into that. So what exactly you are trying to do? You are trying to filter out the signal with different filters pre-decided. So you will get different frequency domain information. So that is one. So either I will depend on time domain information, or I will depend on the frequency domain information, or I can take the time frequency domain information, which is by short time Fourier transform, wavelet transform, whether it is continuous wavelet transform or discrete wavelet transform or S transform or Hilbert-Wang transform, or many transforms are there. I am not going into the detail of the signal processing technique or detail of the image processing technique, but what is the main aim? The aim is to extract some useful time domain feature, frequency domain feature, time frequency domain feature from the signal, so that I can able to distinguish between different signals and I can categorize them into different classes. So I hope you can apply. Here we have applied a wavelet packet transform. So once you apply the wavelet packet transform, now every signal, each channel is having a signal. Now the recorded may be for 1 hour. You may segment it to different hours. You may segment it to ictal, pre-ictal, stroke, no stroke, whatever. Then you make your classification. You get the feature. So once I am getting a feature, so for every pattern, let I am making this pattern, this is a length. So one length I am getting one feature set. Next length I am getting another feature set. Next length I am getting another feature set. So likewise, maybe the recorded for 1 hour or 2 hours, you will get 100 feature set in one channel. And if it is a 32 channel, you will get 3200 feature set. So out of this 3200 feature set, every set is having a feature set like this, x1, x2 up to x7. Okay, so this is only frequency domain feature. You may add the time domain feature. So more and more feature you add. Now the more and more input feature you will take in a hope that my classification will be better. I don't know whether it will be or it won't be. Okay, so now it comes. What is the next? Once you extract the feature either by wavelet transform or by S transform, this is the S transform. So I am getting the feature, I am obtaining the feature set. The next thing is this feature set is put in a classification algorithm. Okay, either you can do clustering, because if you don't know classes, or you can make a classification if you know the classes. So this is the main idea of this particular example which I am giving to you. So this classification is done. I will show you now. There are two data set is taken. One is University of Bonn, another is neurology data set from the Sleep Center with whom we are coordinating. So forget about that. Forget about this application. Maybe somebody is not able to understand this application, epilepsy, non-epilepsy. But the very simple thing is I am acquiring the data from various cases. What are the different cases? What are the classes? Now you can see one is healthy patient, normal EEG, epilepsy patient without seizure. Okay, epilepsy patient with during seizure, healthy patient, normal EEG, healthy patient EEG during seizure. So these are the different classes. So these classes have to be classified. Now I have different feature. Many features I have taken. I am just putting feature 1 versus feature 2. And you can see all those classes. No seizure, the green one. No seizure from CD is this brown one. Epileptic seizure is red one. You see, if I am taking the feature, this is feature 1, this is feature 2. Feature 1 versus feature 2. Now you can see some classes are not linearly separable. Some classes may be a better separable, but not linearly, but better separable. So I am not sure whether these two feature, if I put to a neural network, now my neural network is having only 2 input, I will get a better accuracy. So my idea here to show you, now you see how now I am changing the feature. Now this is the feature energy of 6 level and energy of 5 level. Now this is entropy of 6, entropy of 5. RMS of 6, RMS of 5. If I am taking all those features, now some cases the features are separable, some cases the features are not completely separable. Like, so what is the main idea? The main idea is here, Why I am telling this? How will you know which set are the optimal feature set? So this question perhaps was raised to me in the first class while discussing MPSO. I have told you also you can decide what is the maximum, what is the optimal feature set. Whether I will take, because this D is a label. For example, I am giving an example. Let you have decomposed the signal up to 7 level or 6 level, and in each level you are taking 6 feature. So your number of feature are 6 into 6, 36. Out of these 36 feature, what are the best combination of feature? You can do it by neural network, but in that neural network, what you do not know what are the input. Earlier I have told you a neural network structure where the input is known, output is known. Now here the output is known, only one node, classification accuracy or the error minimization, but input not known. So you generate the input randomly, generate the hidden layer also randomly. That means the structure is generated randomly, but ultimately you may make it very simpler because these number of feature you are generating randomly. How many feature you have? 36. So what you will do, you generate a random number between 5 to 36. आप ये decide कर लो. Suppose I will take minimum 5 feature. Otherwise, unnecessarily, if you will make it 1 to 36, you will take one feature and definitely it will not able to classify because you understand the problem. So at least you tell no, minimum I will take 5 feature. So you generate a random number between 5 to 36. So let the random number is 8. Automatically what will happen, if there are 8 inputs and those 8 inputs are randomly generated out of 36, but you know what is 1. 1 is, let us RMS of D1, 2 is entropy of D1, 3 is energy of D1, and similarly you know all the 36 feature. So 8 is randomly generated. So now you take which 8? Because you have to generate 8 random number now. Okay, 8 is decided number of input, but 8 randomly. Then you generate the random number between 5 to 36, 17. Okay, so 17, you look what is the 17 feature. Then 32, what is the 32 feature? 7, what is the 7th feature? So likely you generate 8 features. So those are the input. Simply go on, 8 input, 1 hidden layer, 8 or 9 and 1 output layer. So the structure only complication arises is the selection of the number of input, and for each input, what is the input you are selecting out of 36. Are you clear? So earlier whatever I have shown you the inputs are known because the patterns are known to you. But here the input is not known. I don't know how many input will be the best for my classification problem. So input is generated randomly, and for each input node, what is the input feature is also generated randomly. So once the input nodes are fixed, plus 1 is the number of hidden neuron and 1 hidden layer. I am not going into much more complicated. Then you run it, what is the accuracy you are getting for particle 1, particle 2, particle 3, but every particle is randomly generated. That means every particle is randomly taking the feature. Are you getting my point? So this way you can do also. Fine. So this I am not going into this, but here only point is I am showing you, if I am taking only 2 feature, it is very difficult. These features are not linearly separable. So here another point is, sometimes what will happen, for example, I am giving an example. Let us, there are 10 classes. 10 classes. If I have 10 classes, class 1 is having 100 data, class 2 is also having 100 data point. Okay, that means 100 patterns, and unfortunately the class 10 is having only 10 patterns. So how many total number of patterns you have? 990. You want to train your neural network. But now see, if we will generate the number of pattern randomly out of 990, and let us you think to generate 90%. So 90% means out of 900 you will generate 90% of 900 is 810, and 90% of 10 is 9. So you have to generate randomly 819 inputs pattern for training purpose. 90% for training purpose. Now when you generate randomly, it may happen that as one of the class is having less number of data, in this 819, as it is generated randomly, it may happen that class 10 out of only 10 data, maybe only 2 data are coming to the pool during random selection. So if it is coming 2, now what you are doing, you are training all the 10 classes. There is a fair representation of all the classes from 1 to 9, but there is very unfair representation from class 10. Only 2 data is used for the training, but rest 8 data is kept for the testing. Right? This is equivalently one particular teacher's class you have not attended. Out of 40, you have attended only 4 classes and you are appearing the exam. So you may expect very good accuracy in identifying class 1 to 9, but it may fail with same accuracy plus class 10. So in neural network classification or whatever we are doing, there is known as k-fold cross validation or lambda fold cross validation. So what exactly I am doing for the k-fold cross validation or lambda fold cross validation, I am now separating all these data into 10 packets. Okay, A1, A2 up to AI. Okay, so these are the packets I am telling. So in each packet, what will do? Class 1, 100 data. Class 9, a packet 9, 100 data. Oh, sorry, this is 100, 10 data. Sorry, 10, 10. Similarly, class 10, what will happen? 1, 1, 9, then 1. So what will do? Now you take 9 packet for training. If you take 9 packet of training, now definitely 90 are coming from class 1, 90 are coming from class 5, and 9 are coming from class 9. Then you run your neural network algorithm. Then what will do? You train packet 2 to packet 10. Same 90 and 10. Test with this. So this you are doing 10 times. Every time 9 packet are used for training, 1 packet is used for testing. There is a fair representation of all the classes, and every time you will get a accuracy, then you report with the average accuracy. So this is known as the k-fold cross validation example. Okay, this is the classifier design for the k-fold cross validation. I am not going into the detail. Just this is now your training set. This will be testing set. Okay. Now you do it by any neural network structure. I am not bothering about. So you will get now training, testing, accuracy. So this is about one of the classical example. Similarly, I am going to another example also where we are using this neural network in the forecasting. So here I am giving you what happens in the forecasting. Just let me see. Because time is very short, that's why I am giving. This is another algorithm which is known as extreme learning machine. Okay, forget about whether it is extreme learning machine or neural network method, but you know your input and you know your output. But the unknowns are these weights and these weights. So these weights are A and B. A is the weight associated with this, B is the bias. So then everyone is having a transfer function. So this G, AI, BI, XJ. XJ is the input pattern. This input pattern is multiplied with the gain, that is the weight, then with its bias, it is multiplied again with beta, and the summation is the output. You know the targeted output, actual output, so you can train it. So this is the, here also we apply a hybrid methodology, but one problem is, when I have a very highly nonlinear time domain data, preparation of the data set is very important. If you will prepare this data set like this, you use this much for training and predict the next. Then you slide the window by 1, training and testing. Slide the window by 1, training and testing. Slide the window by 1, training and testing. So similarly, when you will go, there is a danger here because there are some abrupt data. So your whole training and testing may get distorted when you will set this data. So now again, my point is, instead of getting the training and testing pattern from the original data, if we can apply certain signal processing method to filter out these signals into different bands. Now I can filter it to band 1, band 2, band 3, band 4, band 5. Now let them come. So once I will get this band, now what I can do, for example, the band 1 is the smoother version, like this, and band 10 or another band is of this version. So what I'll do, rather than training the original network of this nature, I can train the smoother version by one neural network, the dilation version by another neural network, then combine this prediction together. So this way what I can do, the simpler the trend, because every time series is having a trend and there is some abnormality, some fluctuation. That is the deviation from the trend. So what I am doing exactly, by applying a wavelet method, I am filtering this signal into a low frequency component, that is trend, and a high frequency component, that is the fluctuations, some uncertainty, and predicting both by two different neural network structure. Create, and then you join these two prediction for the final prediction. So your prediction will be better. So that is the main idea. So what exactly, how I am predicting? So when you prepare the data, what I'll do, suppose you are predicting for the time t. So this P is maybe power prediction, this P may be price prediction, this P may be temperature prediction, this P may be dollar price, whether it is a management problem, you are doing dollar price prediction, or it is a civil engineering problem, you are forecasting the flood, or it is atmospheric science problem, you are forecasting the monsoon, the how much rainfall will be there, or it is a electrical problem related to the electric load demand or electric price. Forget about that. But this is a time series data. I have to prepare this data. I have data for 1 year. For example, I have a load data for 1 year. So if I have a load data for 1 year and I have the data which is recorded for each hour, then how many data I have? So I have a data for 24 data in a 1 day into 365, that is 1 year. This much data I have. I have to train it. So you have to train it. You can't feed all the data. So you have to make a pattern. So if I am making a pattern, suppose I am predicting for time t, then this prediction, this pattern prediction of time t is dependent on what is the before, pt minus 1, 1 hour before, 2 hour before, 3 hour before, 1 day before, 1 day 1 hour before, 1 day 2 hour before, 1 day 3 hour before. Okay, this is 160, forget about. This is 1 week before, 168, 1 week 1 hour, then P 170, 1 week 2 hour, then 336, 1 you go into hour, how much hour before. Okay, so this way you are training, you are creating the training data, you are creating the patterns, and those patterns are now to be trained. But here again you may apply your evolutionary or random sort. Why you are thinking that the pattern at time t is dependent on only pt minus 1, t minus 2, t minus 3, t minus 24, t minus 25. This I am taken from perception. By okay, the today, because everybody is having a trend. So today 10 o'clock the load demand may depend on what is the load demand in the previous day. But again it is specific on the, whether it is a weekday or a holiday. Again it is specific which day you are talking of, at what season, whether this season is summer or winter or rainy. So that's why don't think that this pattern recognition or forecasting problem is very easy. It's a complicated, and the brain lies here, the formulation of the problem. Yes, the brain lies, the main thing is the formulation of the problem. How you will create this pattern for the learning problem. So that's why we are creating the pattern for the learning. We are combining then of the learning with different, this is your signal. The signal is decomposed into different frequency domain. Once it is decomposed into frequency domain, then you combine all these and train and test separately. So this way we have done 1 level decomposition, 2 level decomposition, 3 level decomposition, 4 level decomposition. Again, you may go one step ahead. What is the maximum number of decomposition which will give you better result? Because ultimately your objective function is MAPE. With every problem I am trying to focus towards optimization, because you learnt optimization. So here the final output of the neural network structure, whether it is a neural network, whether it is a support vector machine, whether you employ the extreme learning machine, whether you employed your deep learning, okay, whether you employed the convolution neural network, I don't bother. My concern is what is the final value of the mean absolute percentage error in your forecasting. Whether it is achieved by a particular neural network structure by taking the feature of level 1, level 2, level 3, or which are the feature, so you can do a lot of optimization. Okay. Similarly, you can change also the number of nodes of the neural network structure. Either it is a ELM, here in this case it is the ELM, extreme learning machine. Fine. So this is one problem where you can have your actual and forecast. You can find the MAP. I am now again putting a multi-objective flavor to this. What is a multi-objective flavor? For example, I'll give you an example. Suppose you are predicting the time of arrival of the bus at a particular bus stop, because all the Delhi cluster buses are running in a particular route. So every day the time is written, the bus time is this, but it may or may not arrive. So now if you want to predict looking into the past history of the bus, so definitely the past history is, the route is fixed, but the past history is dependent on the day, the past history is dependent on the season, because some is, it is the rainy season and the waterlogging will be there, then definitely there will be a delay. So you learn it. So now if you want to predict it, the bus number X will arrive at the stop Y, and let the arrival time you are predicting 10:20 AM. Okay. So this forecast is known as point forecast. I am predicting the bus number X will arrive at stop number Y at a time, that time is 10:20 AM. So you are predicting exactly a point time, 1 point. So this is a point forecast, 10:20 AM. And no forecast is associated with 100% certainty. The bus will arrive at 10:20. The bus may arrive at 10:20-22. So there is an error of 2 minutes, or it may arrive at 10:18. There is another error of 2 minutes, either or it may arrive at 10:25. I don't know. So every forecast, every point forecast is associated with an error. But my decision making is based on your forecast. You forecasted 10:20. So I will reach definitely at 10:20, but the bus has gone, it has arrived at 10:18. Or I have to wait up to 5 minutes, 10:30, 5 minutes, 10:25. So now this problem is very, it may not be important for the bus stop, but it is very important nowadays, particularly while we are making the forecasting of the power production from renewable. Because you are telling tomorrow the total wind production at this particular wind plant will be 100 megawatts at 10 am. Or this particular solar plant, tomorrow at 10 am, the total solar power production will be 5 megawatt. Because this power production is forecasted based on the wind speed or solar insolation. That may change. If it will change, there is a change in the power production. If there is a change in the power production, look into the repercussion. You have committed to give certain power, and during my commitment I have committed all the power which is coming from the renewable, because that is the cheap one, and I have to utilize everything. The rest of the power is committed from thermal generator. Now suppose the total power which is coming from the renewable sources are less. That means you have to ask to your thermal generator to increase their power production to meet the load demand. Then definitely they will charge more. आपने उनको कमिट किया था भाई 5 मेगावाट देना है, अभी बोल रहे हो नहीं 7 मेगावाट दो. They have to increase the price. Or the reverse way. Suppose your prediction fails. You predicted 100 megawatt renewable. Now at present 10 am you are getting 110 megawatt renewable. So what you will do? 10 megawatt extra. Your load is fixed. You have already committed that total power 500 megawatt. 100 megawatt renewable, 400 from thermal. Now you have to reduce 10 megawatt from thermal. Then only when you will go to a particular thermal plant to reduce there, they may not agree. There will be a penalty. So please see, that's why what people do, instead of a point forecast, can I have a band forecast? So let us, I am forecasting the total power tomorrow exactly 100 megawatt. At 10 am 100 megawatt. At 10:30 this will 110 megawatt. At 10:25 this is the megawatt. So this is the point forecast I am doing. No, don't do point forecast. I can predict a band. Here it will be, okay, 95 to 105. Here it will be 105 to 110, whatever. So you give a band. Now the question is, if you will give a narrow band, so the prediction interval is narrow, but with how much confidence you will give it? Your confidence will be very low. So I'm here giving two concepts. One is the prediction interval, another the confidence interval. High confidence, then definitely the narrow will be wide. I can tell you the bus X will arrive at station Y instead of 10:20. मैं आपको आराम से बोल दूंगा 9 बजे से 11 बजे के बीच आएगा. So my interval is 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and I'm 100% आएगा ही आएगा. So my confidence is 100%. Are you getting my point? So the narrow will be the prediction band, the better is the forecast, but your confidence will be little bit low. If your confidence is high, your band will, but what exactly we want? We want a compromise solution. Narrow prediction interval and high confidence. Okay, so you can apply your multi-objective here. We have some papers, you can see all those papers we have applied here. So now I am not going into the detail of this. So this, my aim today is to give you some of the fundamental concepts of different problems. Anybody can pick up a particular problem. You may go on doing all those problems and very finely, because you are the good programmer, I know. I have done my programming in Fortran in 1986. I forgot almost. At that time, Fortran 77. Okay, and Fortran 4. But nowadays you have many languages, Python, MATLAB, whatever. Okay, so I assume all of you are very good programmer, very good researcher. My idea is only to throw some light on different research domain, how you can have an interdisciplinary research, how can you fit your optimization algorithm into various domains. Okay, fuzzy, I'll skip it. I've already discussed all those. I'm not going into the detail. And lastly, for 10 minutes, I'll make another application, that is the maximum power point tracking. If there are any power system engineer, power electronics engineer, you know that your solar insolation, solar power, PV curve. Okay, this is the power, this is the voltage, and you will get for a one panel for a particular temperature and for a particular solar insolation level, this is the maximum power. So this maximum power what you are getting from a panel is dependent on the temperature and solar insolation. So the more will be the solar insolation, the power increases. Now you can see this power increases. So you have to track this particular. So your controller should tune the gain in such a manner that or your duty cycle of the converter is trained such a manner that you will operate this particular point. This is very easy. As the curve you can see, this is a simple convex maximization problem. There is only one peak. So you can obtain here by traditional method. You start from a random point and move it traditional way. Okay, if you will move it traditional way and based on the information of the gradient, you will reach here. Similarly, you will start if somebody, because you are generating a random solution. From this random solution, you can grow either way. Either the information of the gradient, this is one gradient, positive gradient, this is the negative gradient. So gradient ascent or gradient descent method, so you will obtain here. So this is very easy. But my point is, now either you can do this is by perturb and observe. So you take a point, generate the next solution by perturbing it, by increment, by traditional search method, then whether it is a feasible or not, then you go on. So that's why based on the information of del P and based on the information of del V after the perturbation, because for a particular point 1, whether the 1 will be here or the 1 will be here or the 1 will be here or the 1 will be here, which is randomly generated. Now from that one, either by perturbation you can come down or you can come up. Similarly here you can come down, you can come up. So there are 4 different cases. You measure in all these 4 cases del P and del V. So for case A, del P is less than 0, del V less than 0. Okay, so this is the case. You don't want this. For case B, del P is less than 0, del V is less than 0. You don't want this. Okay, similarly del P, case C, del P greater than 0. So you want to move forward. Here also you want to move forward. So how to change the duty cycle? How to change the duty cycle here? In all these 4 cases. So the new duty cycle is generated based on the measurement of del P and del V, the sign, basically the sign of del P and del V. You can do it by crisp, you can do it by fuzzy, del P is small, del V is small, then increase the duty cycle by small or whatever. You can make the fuzzy PO controller, it is PO controller by fuzzy, or they not fuzzy, simply increment by del x, that is pre-decided. But one problem you will get in the pre-decided. For example, if the curve is very sharp, you are here, but the pre-decided step is del x like this, then you may oscillate about the solution because your gradient changes. Okay, so these are the various merit and demerit of the standard searching technique. Okay, so this search is dependent on the step size. Either it is a fixed step size or it is a variable step size, that is fuzzy, and how you are moving based on this. That is one. But the other one is if the panel is shadowed and the shadow condition varies, then what will happen? Either you will get a PV pattern like this or you will get a PV pattern like this. Okay, but in this pattern now you can see you are a maximum power point here, in this pattern the maximum power point here. So there are many local maxima and one global maxima, but ultimately I have to reach at global maxima. So now this is the best case of application of your evolutionary swarm intelligence based algorithm to tune the parameter of the controller, or to tune to generate the duty cycle based on the movement, and the movement is not stochastic, not random, not deterministic movement by del x, but a stochastic movement. So I hope you understand the problem how to formulate. One is your controller, so one problem is your optimization problem, and the other problem is the maximization by this algorithm. So this actually we have done, and here also at different time the peak also changes. So this is basically a dynamic optimization, not a constant optimization. Okay, like your Google is predicting the traffic. Now your traffic at 10 a.m. may be very Ross at Gurgaon, but if it is at 2, it may not be Ross at Gurgaon, the Ross may be at ITO. So that's why the peak changes. So the peak changes depending on the position of the sun. So that's why you may not have the same peak at every instant of time. So it's a dynamic peak. Okay, that means this is a global optima, but the position of the global optima is changing with respect to time. So you have to tune the controller parameter, a dynamic tuning of the controller parameter as per the requirement. So here we have changed it by different algorithm. I am not going into the detail of the algorithm, but you can study detail of the algorithm. But if you have understood all this algorithm. So these are some application. I told you there are enormous application in different area. You can apply your algorithm into various domain of engineering, into various domain of science. So my only request and suggestion to all of you, those who are doing research, there are two important aspects. One aspect is your problem domain. You define your problem domain. Look into the complexity of the problem. Look into the necessity what you want. Then choose your subcomputing or computational intelligence or evolutionary intelligence technique. It's not that the problem is very simple, you go for very complicated method to solve it. No. So looking into your expertise. Suppose somebody's expertise in understanding the problem and defining more and more complicacy, adding more complicacy to the real life problem. You do that. Take the help of others to solve the problem. Somebody is good in developing new algorithms, but your algorithm is to be tested in somebody's problem. So basically my only suggestion is these are the collaborative type of work you must do together. May not be this collaboration of the work at the when you are doing PhD, but once your PhD is completed, you can collaborate with many people and learn. Everybody has to learn from the other also. Okay, so that is the main idea of whole of my presentation of today, to give you some feel how this computational intelligence, soft computing, natural intelligence, natural computing, evolutionary intelligence, evolution has changed the life of problem solving in various science, engineering, management domain, because this is decision making also. Okay, so let me close it here. Now it is very difficult in those time to continuously tell for 2 hours. Of course, I have covered without any interaction or interference from any of you. Thank you for listening. Now it is free for any discussion or suggestion or whatever. Yeah, questions please, or discussions please.
Participants, if you have any query, please ask.
Yeah. Any question, any suggestion, or any, because I have given you the idea how to write, how to link all those, so that you will be able to carry out further research. Because some of the questions you have asked also in my first class when I was just going about the PSO, okay, how we can apply. So again, I want to make it clear. Many researchers they have in their mind always this optimization algorithm can be applied to a problem when I have a mathematical formulation of the problem f of x, where x is a vector, but not necessarily. Today I will give you that idea to make it clear. Not necessarily always it is a mathematical function. It may be a subprogram, and the output of your subprogram is something which is to be optimized.
Hello, sir.
Yes, please.
Sir, sir, these fuzzy logic control for MPPT, sir, how much they are exact for sir, a real implementation, sir?
You can implement it. See, I have given you the example. The fuzzy logic is already implemented in the washing machine. Your fuzzy logic washing machines are there. Fuzzy logic based cameras are there. So fuzzy control is a real implemented in various application areas. Okay, even if in your drone etc. the fuzzy controllers people are, so you can have a fuzzy logic controller. The only see, by fuzzy logic controller what you are doing, instead of a fixed gain PI controller, it is a variable gain PI controller, isn't it? The KP, KI, KD of the controller parameter of a fixed gain KP, KI, KD, irrespective the error and change in error, it is constant. But in case of a fuzzy, you are making this KP, KI, KD variable looking into the error and change in error. I have given you the example. Why it is necessary? Because when you are reaching towards target and your error is 0, you don't want KP should be large. Or when your error is small, you don't want your KP is large. If KP will be large, then what will happen? You are just approaching 0 error with a large push, then your error may become negative. So you may oscillate. That's why. So you are just, it is a basic idea. The controller parameter can be tuned by fuzzy, and fuzzy is reality. There are many fuzzy controller which are existing also.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Yes.
If for image processing application,
yeah,
there is a data set which contain 5 classes.
Okay.
Each class contain 100 images.
Yes.
In that case, while generating features, what will be the size of the feature set, sir?
And that question exactly I want to ask you, because I don't know what will be the size of the feature set.
250 by 250 is the size
no.
of
That is the size of the image. I am talking of the feature which will be obtained by applying the various image processing technique. For example, you first denoise those signal, then apply your Gabor transform, or you apply any of the Stockwell transform or something. In that case, the feature dimension goes on increasing. So you have to look into what is the optimal size of the feature set. Okay, where you can apply this.
Okay.
But your deep neural network directly you are processing the image, isn't it?
Okay. So while feature selection,
Yes.
what will be the input to the optimization algorithm, sir?
The input not to the optimization algorithm. The input from the optimization algorithm will go to your neural network or support vector machine or extreme learning machine or your deep learning network or CNN is what is the optimal feature set. Suppose you have 50 features. For example, I have told you, one image you are taking, you apply DCT at various frequency domain, you find some feature, the energy, the entropy, all this value. Are you getting my point? So now
Yes.
you do not know which features are optimal for the classification purpose.
Yes.
That feature set will go randomly. So you have
Okay.
20 particle or 20 chromosome. Each chromosome is randomly generated.
Okay.
Okay. So suppose you
Okay.
have 10 feature. Out of 10 feature, you take 5 randomly. Particle 1, another 5 randomly. Particle 2, another 5 randomly. Particle 3. Now you see for each one what is the objective function output. Objective
Okay.
function is your classification accuracy.
Okay.
That is my point. So likely you go on and find what is the best feature.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other query from participant side?
Sir, is there any other parameter to evaluate the classifier's performance, sir? Apart from accuracy, false positive rate, ROC and all, I am bothering about time complexity, training time. Can it be considered as the performance of a classifier, sir?
Yes, yes, that's why telling, and that's why I told also during my presentation, you look into what is your classification problem. For example, my machine has already damaged. I want to make a post-mortem analysis. Okay, so whether it's a post-mortem analysis of a human body, why, what is the cause of the death, or it is a post-mortem analysis why my power system fails, I am taking the voltage signal, current signal, or it is a post-mortem analysis why my machine fails, it is a large induction motor, why it fails. Okay, or it may be the black box data from a air crash or whatever. So when you are doing that, in that case, time is not a concern. Are you getting my point?
Okay, sir.
So their accuracy is concerned. So what may be the neural network structure, what may be the complexity, it may take 1 day for running, it may take heavy computational burden, but your accuracy is a concern. Are you getting my point?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The second point, suppose I want to implement like this fuzzy controller onlinely for the washing machine, or I want to control the fuzzy control online in a camera. Okay, or I want to make this maximum power point tracking in the fuzzy controller, but I want to tune it by evolutionary algorithm. So
Okay,
their
sir.
time is a concern. Instead of 98% accuracy, you may reach 97 or 95, chalega. There is absolutely no problem. But time is very concern. Okay, because if you will wait, the system will go unstable. So that's why my only suggestion is look into your application domain when you, where you are applying. Then look into, does the complexity plays an important role? If it is plays an important role, go for. If it doesn't play an important role, don't go it. Or sometimes you may apply multi-objective. You want a compromise solution. No, 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 no. I want a compromise solution. Okay,
Yes,
where
sir.
equal weightage is given